Okay, so let's start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the stream 3 of this DKF 2022. The topic of the stream is investment and portfolio management trends, and our first speaker is David Ezra from ICE Data Services. So I let David introduce himself. That's the best option, and let's have his next half an hour, his presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining today's session about interest rate volatility and inflation. So my name is David Ezra. I'm a product manager for derivatives data and risk analytics for ICE Intercontinental Exchange. So before the update and the presentation about interest rate vol and inflation, I just want to give you a quick overview and an update on the LIBOR transition, because when you speak about interest rates, obviously we had a lot of volatility recently, but we're also in the middle of one of the major market reform that we had over the past few years. So important to understand the new landscape for interest rates. When it comes to new benchmarks, that are now overnight rates in major markets, like in the UK, it's already the case. In Japan as well, we migrated successfully in those economies last year, in Switzerland as well. In Europe, we've got a hybrid model with Euribor and the overnight rate Esther coexisting. So the way you trade these indices right now in the derivatives and cash market is in an overnight format or realized format, looking backwards over 3 months, 6 months, or looking at the rate in advance. So many different new conventions to take exposure to those interest rates. At ICE, we were administering LIBOR, so we've launched new benchmark, on the swap rate fixings that are used in some markets. We've launched new benchmark here that are using the new overnight rates. So SOFR ICE swap rates, SONIA ICE swap rates, SONIA spread adjusted ICE swap rate. But we maintain obviously Euribor, because that benchmark, that big benchmark will coexist with Esther. But we've also kept synthetic benchmarks on those markets that have already transitions. So in particular, like GBP and GPY. So we've got some synthetic benchmarks that are maintained on those using a synthetic methodology that's a term risk-free rate plus a fixed spread. So this is the new landscape. I just wanted to start with this so you understand what's happening with this reform. In terms of the LIBOR transition, our experience in the UK and Switzerland and Japan is that there are different challenges that people need to cope with. Obviously, sourcing new data, adapting the analytics to deal with those interest rates. When it comes to rates options in particular, if you look at a cap on a risk-free rate, the format of the payoff means that for instance, you have a first cap lay where the rate is not known, what you didn't have in LIBOR. So you also need to adapt the analytics to deal with volatility of a realized rate that's based on the volatility of the overnight rate. These are some technicals, but interesting to understand that when you implement this market reform, it's about sourcing the data, but also adapting all the analytics to deal with these new instruments. So, we've seen people, in terms of the US dollar market, as the date is June 2023. So in US dollar, people are still trading US dollar LIBOR. I think the market, if you take linear and non-linear instruments in derivatives, is probably 50% at the moment on SOFR and 50% on LIBOR. But if you take, for instance, rates options, the non-linear market alone, it's trading mostly SOFR now. So the dollar rates derivatives market is probably where SONIA was at the same time last year, I would say. And it's well on track to to hit the June 23 date. Based on the successful experience in the UK, I don't see any reason why this market won't have a successful migration to the new risk-free rate. The only thing in the US is like it's a bit like in Europe, where there's an appetite to keep as well term rates and to keep credit-sensitive rates as well. So you've got some new candidates to grab this market in terms of credit-sensitive rate. It's very important in lending, because if you're a bank and you have a client triggering a revolving facility, you need this aspect of the credit risk transfer to be kept in the rate format you're using, because if the client comes and pulls the credit facility, you need to reflect the refinancing on your side and add that component of the interbanking lending market, so that credit risk component. So in the US, you have a landscape of overnight rate, term risk-free rates, and also term credit sensitive rates. So similar to what's happening in Europe, with coexistence between the different types of rates. Just an update on what we've been doing at ICE in our futures market. As you know, we have the markets, the listed market for rates and rates option on Euribor, on SONIA as well. So we've seen big volumes on the back of the transition last year in the UK. We've seen big volumes as well on the back of the interest rate volatility that we're having. And that's what we're going to discuss now. So just a slide on the big volumes that we had on SONIA futures and option. And let's talk about volatility now. So this was triggered really, so interest rate volatility was triggered by the COVID supply chain related inflation. So that started with inflation prints that came really at levels that we had not seen for a very long time. And that's really started with the COVID central bank policy and the supply chain problems. And then you had the geopolitical stress that started with late in Feb with the biggest war in Europe since a very long time. That created a commodity shock, a sell-off in risky assets as well. So this environment creates a very new market regime that we have not seen for I started my career in 2002 at Goldman Sachs, and we always had, we always had that central bank put. They call that in the market the central bank put. And now, with inflation at this level, it disappeared. So we're really back in a market regime where things are going to function naturally. People are going to look for strategies to hedge and to mitigate the downside, and look at really fundamentals and value, probably a lot more than they did during the pandemic. So just, I put on that graph inflation since 2005, I think. It's all the data ahead on zero coupon inflation swap. So one of the market, you have two markets where you can expose inflation forecast. It's really one market is the derivative market, the zero coupon inflation swap, and you have also obviously the linker market. So from both these markets, you can look at what's the implied inflation forecast, and you see that this is really something that we haven't seen for a very, very long time. Showing you the different expectations between the 1 year and 5 year in Europe. Obviously, the big question on inflation is it temporary or is it permanent? That's really the big question. That's why the market on the front end is pricing an inflation that's much higher than if you look on the 5 year. This is the picture in dollars. So in all major markets, the situation is very similar with this 1 year, 5 year slope, and the market pricing high inflation on the short term, and then things normalizing over a longer term. which is why if you look at the swap curve or the treasury curve in major markets, in particular in the US, now that the market has started to price 9, 10 hikes on the short term, you will see that the two stands the shape of the curve is a bit volatile. It has been flattening, but it's all about whether the central bank is going to raise rates on a short-term basis and then medium-term decrease rates because there is a risk of recession. So these are really the thematics that you have in the market at the moment. The curve, if you look on the front end, like on the 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, that curve is crazy. I mean, 20%. It's very difficult to calibrate even with the models we have, but like the market is still pricing very, very high short-term prints on inflation. So what does it mean? Inflation means rate volatility. This chart is a rate volatility index. Or think about it about yield. Think about it as well as a yield volatility index. Okay, so again, I took the data, as much data as I could, 1988. Okay, so you see that you had the pandemic here. I did that chart a few weeks ago. I'll show you the most recent data in a moment, but you see that rate volatility is coming back on the back, on the back of the inflation shock, the commodity shock related to the Ukraine-Russia war, and of course the inflation derived from it. So you see these are more recent level, like updated. You see we are at level in dollar like 140 basis points. 100 basis points plus in euro, which means that this is really a space to watch because rate volatility and rates increasing. Even if you hedge inflation and you bought linkers, okay. Even if you hedge inflation and you bought linkers, you're obviously still exposed to real rate risk. And these markets are becoming risky markets now. So if you look at the bond performance markets over the past quarter, I'm showing you some numbers, based on our index here, like the Bank of America Global Corporate and High Yield Index. Govie bond on that side. You've got other asset class performance, commodity obviously. So one thing that's very interesting now is, and that's something our research is how to create a proxy on inflation from commodities market. So it has a tendency to overshoot. Of course, it's not an easy exercise if you're trying to track the CPI, but it's something that we are looking at. Just more numbers. I'll circulate the slide, but that shows you the risky asset selling off, since the start of the year with the levels on the spot and the volatility that you had, 1 year ago, early in 2022, and now. So you can clearly see that the volatility in all markets is up 10 points, and the risky markets are selling off, which means that. So that we discussed, these are the commodity price search. So you remember we had some crazy session on nickel. Wheat is a major asset to look at in commodity. I think an investor has to look a lot more at commodity across the board than it had in the past. So people looking at inflation, they always look at precious metals. I'm personally thinking that precious metals is something you look at when you think about hyperinflation, but not really when you think about inflation like we have now. We are not yet at levels of hyperinflation, but what is very interesting to look at, I think, is energy, ag. These are really asset class to look at. Food prices. You can see that the volatility is very high as well on those markets, and the price spike is 30% plus. So what's the impact on the equity and fixed income market? Something like wheat. If you look at the top wheat exporters and the top wheat importers, of course that commodity shock has an impact on those issuers. I mean, look at Egypt 5-year sovereign spread. It's a big importer of wheat over the past few months. Look at Sri Lanka yields. So that's why, of course, people need to look at commodity a lot more than we always looked at commodity, but now it's really central in every investor portfolio, whether he trades equities or bonds, and we invested as well on our side at ICE. ICE is a big commodity firm. We've got major commodity exchange, but we've invested a lot in our data analytics to create real-time data, to create risk management tool that allows us to look at commodity risk much closer. So gold and silver are coming back a bit. But risky asset sell-off, of course, is creating as well some credit spread shock. So you've got the major credit derivative indices widening again. We haven't seen this since 2020, the pandemic start. So yeah, the market is volatile. And one asset class I wanted to discuss as well is crypto. So it's another risk asset class that has seen a lot of pressure recently, with the particular example of the Terra Luna that was supposed to be a stable coin, but on the back of it not being backed by cash, but by an algo that some major hedge funds attacked. It collapsed and created a shock for the crypto asset class last 2 weeks ago. So this gives you, as an introduction, where are the markets, what are the performance per asset class. Now, what are the hedging trends to look at? Again, if you're long an equity or bond portfolio, at the moment you've got a big problem. Okay, you have both assets selling off at the same time. If you hedge inflation using linkers, you're still sensitive to real rate volatility and the rate hikes that are priced in the market, and this is challenging. So what we see is people look a lot more at derivatives. People look a lot more as well at what could happen. I just put an inquiry I had from a client recently. Let's model the stress test of Fed funds at 10%, 5-year at 8%. These are crazy levels for interest rates, but this is what people have in mind. This is what they're stressing in their scenarios. And what are the hedging tools that you have in the market available, where you have enough liquidity, where you have enough transparency on the trading? People look a lot more at derivatives. So obviously, listed derivatives are not new. But the ETF market is providing some interesting option, because you've got ETFs on nominal bonds, you've got ETFs on inflation bonds that are very liquid, you've got options on these ETFs. Of course, you've got the swaption market that has a good liquidity. It's a market as well that, on the back of the LIBOR transition, is trading a lot at the moment. It's a bit like the listed market I discussed earlier. Our SONIA market or our Euribor market at ICE in Europe, we see a lot of volumes, of course, based on the rate volatility and the LIBOR migration for some markets like the UK. So looking at derivatives, in my humble opinion, is something that is very interesting in the current environment, but you need to have access to the right risk management tool. In particular, if you're a traditional long-only investor, or even if you manage a portfolio for a private client, it's good to look at option strategy, but you need to have access to good data analytics tool. So real-time data on derivatives, sometimes it's more challenging to find than real-time data on bonds, on bonds or even equities. And that's something that we've been producing and providing to clients a lot in terms of real-time data on interest rate derivatives or credit curves, commodity. and then risk management tools. So, having some risk management tools that allow you to measure, what's the contribution of the derivatives portion to your risk. So compare the value at risk, for instance, of the portfolio with the derivatives hedges to the value at risk of the portfolio on its own. These are the trends that we're seeing as well in the US and Europe. So I'll show you an example, how, putting some hedges using credit derivative index position or short positions on ETF can mitigate your value at risk on a big, we took a big benchmark bond portfolio, corporate and government, global, and use some hedges from the ETF market in that case to mitigate the risk. Understand the value at risk as well, where it's coming from, be able to explain it at the trade level, look at the different tails that you have. Then you've got as well stress testing tool. So, because this market regime is new, this cloud inquiry I showed you earlier, test the Fed funds at 10%, test the 10-year at 8%. These are things that you couldn't even speak about. Like no one knew like 2 years ago that rates could go back to this kind of level. Even now it's difficult to imagine. But I think people need to have access to the right risk management tools to really understand different scenarios and be very disciplined. Like this is the current market situation. I'm not going back to the past. I'm on my own. I don't have the central bank. What can happen? What can happen to the portfolio? Whether you advise private clients or whether you're managing risk, bond risk or equity risk, it's cross-asset. Be able to understand the risk, where it's coming from. From my interest rate risk or credit risk or volatility. Be able to explain it. And then real-time data. So it's a trend that we've been seeing because the market is becoming so volatile. You've got two risks. Of course, you've got three types of risk, actually. You've got market risk, you've got liquidity risk, and you've got credit risk, credit counterparty risk. We're going to speak briefly about those three risks, but when it comes to real-time data, it's very important to be able to react quickly and understand what's going on your portfolio intraday. In particular, when you have nickel going up 250% in a session. So this is what we've been doing at ICE, is investing a lot in our real-time data infrastructure in derivatives market, both for ICE internally and for all our clients in our data analytics business. Cross-asset as well, because we mentioned like some people managing Govie and corporate bonds, they didn't always look at commodity like they need today. They didn't hedge, they never hedge with commodity. But we've seen people, looking at putting some commodity hedges as a proxy for inflation. And this is interesting. I mean, to be able to look cross-asset across the board, what's happening in the market, and have access to different options when you're looking to hedge. Credit counterparty risk. So that's credit counterparty risk. I'm going to mention a couple of things that we saw, some trends. Of course, the XVA, the PFE, when you trade with your bank, trading with a corporate. So that's always been there. But now, in the Middle East in particular, with the commodity volatility and the interest rate volatility, so that's impacting the view forward on the peg between SAR and US dollar. So people are using a lot more of these things, this simulation to understand your exposure, your expected exposure or potential future exposure. But we've seen something very interesting in the private wealth space. So you've seen the explosion of retail over the past few years, in particular during the pandemic. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in the US with the Robinhood of this world. And this business, you've got all the private banks in Switzerland, they've got clients selling them options, and they are facing credit risk on these clients. So all these banks were using in the past some margin models based on simple approach, and we take a percentage, very conservative of notional. But we've seen a trend from these players, and actually at ICE, we won a lot of business last year, with Crédit Agricole, private bank, some of the largest private bank in the world, to provide some analytics tool. So this one, so to provide some analytics tool that allow to have a more dynamic view of this risk that the bank is facing when it's buying options from clients, whether these are vanilla options or exotic options. So, being able to calculate initial margin on a pre-trade basis using real-time data, and being able to have access to analytics to stress test the portfolio, have a more dynamic view on the collateral. So these are some trends that we've seen in private wealth. And then, so CVA, I mentioned it, and CVA and PFE in the institutional space, bank facing a corporate, being able to understand very well the exposure at every step, over the lifetime of the deal, being able to look at the exposure on a pre-trade basis using real-time data. And these are, of course, using good credit data as well, because when you calculate CVA, what's very important is the default probability of your counterparty. That's not very easy to calibrate. There's a market that allows you to look at this, is the CDS market. So we clear this market at ICE, which means that we have access to a lot of data, but it's a market where you can find only 2,000 issuers or so. So it's much smaller universe than the number of corporates that you have to look at and hedge when you deal with a credit counterparty risk. Which is why, we also have some sector curves by industry, by rating, in order to calibrate this default probability when we calculate CVA. 5 minutes left. So in the interest of time, I just wanted to say a word about liquidity risk as well, because it's three types of risk: market risk, credit risk, liquidity risk. Liquidity risk is something to keep an eye on, in particular if you manage bond portfolio or if you advise clients on a bond portfolio, because you see it all the time. The bond market is huge. It grew a lot in size over the past decade, and when the market is volatile, finding liquidity and understanding liquidity is very challenging, which is why you need to understand on every security what's the potential volume you can trade, at what price, what the price impact of trading that volume. And this is something that we've been working on our side to provide clients with this type of tool. And then to finish, another important trend, when it comes, so it's more technology, but it's also important. I mean, in our business, when we work in financial markets, whether you trade, manage risk, advise clients, technology is becoming super important. We spoke about real-time data. We spoke about analytics and computation as well, because some of these risk calculations I described earlier are very computation intensive. One key aspect is the technology and integration. How to bring that content and how to consume the content you need easily. I just want to mention one word, is the word API. API for me is a revolution. I work in this industry 20 years, and working with API is like sending an email. So we achieve integration of real-time content, of pre-trade analytics calculation, much easier than we used to with the fantastic development of the API technology and the adoption of the API technology within financial institutions and asset managers and private wealth managers. That's it. Thank you very much for your time. Any question maybe? Is there something that you wanted to ask about that? No question? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And if you still have some question, you can find David at the booth upstairs.
Yeah, we have a booth ICE.
It's here downstairs?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
here downstairs. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.